Hi, this is Emma from Arise, and I'm here to tell you about and to welcome you to our new podcast at Arise Home Education. This is going to be a place where home educators can be encouraged, where you can be informed of great resources, where we hope to give you practical ideas and tips and advice for every stage of your home ed journey. We're going to be having guests. We're going to have in the next coming weeks. We'll be featuring our tutors at Arise Home Education. We'll also be having other guests who will come along and speak to you about areas that they are passionate about or where they have a particular expertise. In the next couple of weeks, look out for a podcast with where I interview Claire Rogerson. Many of you will be familiar with Claire if you live in the Central Belt. She's a well-known figure in the home ed community. She is absolutely lovely. She is a great encourager, a great networker. She loves bringing home educators together and creating that space for community. She's going to be talking about creative ways to home educate when you have young children. And that's she's just lovely. I think you'll all love Claire. We will also be discussing more spiritual aspects of home education. Coming up, I'm going to be doing a podcast on prayer as a home educator and both the creative ways to facilitate prayer as a home ed mum, because we know that can be really difficult when you're surrounded by young children. And we're also going to be discussing some of the more political and topical points that are affecting home educators and Christians in the UK and in Scotland. So I hope this will be a blessing to you. If you really want to see anything featured in this podcast, please put that in the comments and please subscribe. Thank you. Hi everyone, this is Emma from Arise, and I've got Nicki here who is our art tutor, and today we're going to be discussing art in your homeschool. Nicki is going to be beginning her art class in August, so check that out. It's absolutely fantastic, and she has a background in art. She also works with younger kids, combining her artistic talents with nature study. Nicki, can you tell us a little bit about the different things that you're involved in?
Absolutely. Hi, so I have a son who is 9, and when he was younger, even before we even considered school and he was at home with me, I became very interested in the Montessori style. And he then started to go to a Montessori nursery, and that led to me working part-time as their art teacher. So a few times a month I go and I work at the Montessori nursery, and it's a wonderful setting, and they give me lots of free rein to do lots of wonderful projects. We have created a huge 1.5 meter long whale out of scrap fabric. We have done painting and drawing and printing, and done all sorts of lovely things with them, often outside in their garden as well, which is lovely. As well as working there, on a Thursday morning, I have a little class called Wee Seedlings based in Falkland, on the Falkland estate. And again, it's working with young children, so 3 to kind of 9 sort of age, where we look at, we follow the seasons, and we do nature and art-based projects. And it can range from, a few weeks ago, we did a whole lesson on dandelions. We talked about pollination. We made yellow pom-poms and glued them on the top of a stick. We did some hammering, where we took a dandelion and some cotton and we hammered it to transfer the pigment. We did hammered nails into little log slices and used yellow thread to wind back and forward to make a circle and make these lovely yellow heads. So it really, really varies what we do with them. In my own work as well, I'm a printed textile designer by training, and I create my own I start with pen drawings in a sketchbook. I scan them into the computer. I add color. I make repeat patterns, and these often end up, excuse me, on greetings cards, or then sometimes I transfer it to a screen and screen print the designs onto fabric, often cotton canvas, and then make them into products such as reusable bags for snacks. I did work as an art teacher in public school for about 13 years, but now working with younger ones and excited to start doing some tutoring through Arise.
Wow, that is so exciting. The work you're doing with the young children, you said you went to the Montessori nursery. There's elements in there that remind me quite of almost of Charlotte Mason nature study as well. Um,
Yes, absolutely.
it just sounds absolutely delightful. Um, for families listening, how might they be able to incorporate some types of art into their homeschool life, even if they don't feel very arty? How would be a good inroad into maybe a weekly art activity that would be very doable for somebody maybe like me, who loves the
um,
sound of all this, but when tries to implement it,
yeah,
falls flat on its face?
yes, absolutely. Something that helped us get started was we used a little curriculum called Exploring Nature with Children, and it gives you a weekly theme. And alongside that, I actually created something called a phonology wheel, which is a circular calendar for the year. There's a section for each month. And it's a way that you can nature journal what you're seeing around you as nature changes throughout the year. And it's a nice little thing to dip into each week, and you can draw whatever it is that you find in those areas, keeping a sketchbook and drawing in there. Something that my son loves to do is an ink pad, and then we use bottle tops, the top of a bottle top, the flat part, and then we cut little pieces of sticky backed foam into whatever shape. So it might be the shape of a leaf, and you can cut the parts of the leaf. So maybe cut it into two halves and stick it down to the gap between them, and then use the ink pad to print with. And it's a very quick way of creating a repeat pattern and doing things like that. We've done things in the past like putting paint all over bubble wrap. We use sort of yellow and orange paint and taking a print from that. And when it was dry, we cut it into hexagons to make like honeycomb. Um, we've done things like gone and collected seeds. So, you know, where in the garden can we find any sort of seed? It might be a sunflower head, or it might be just any seed you see in the garden, you know. Or you could look in your kitchen for seeds, and then you could make art from those seeds, or you can do drawings of those seeds, or you could draw the life cycle of the sunflower, including those seeds in there. In the past, we've also done a bit more printing, but with herbs. We've gone into the garden and collected herbs, inked those up, and done some prints from those. We've also made a nice way to make a sort of a sculpture. Take some tin foil. We made the shape of a mushroom, a lovely big mushroom head, and you can cover it in paper mache or Mod Rock, and then paint it. And then you could label the parts of the mushroom, things like that. We often as well like to just take a little tin of watercolors out with us if we're going for a walk somewhere. And there's these lovely pens that you get that hold water in them and have a brush on the end. And it's less messy, and you can just paint into your sketchbook wherever you are. We've really enjoyed working in that way as well. Another lovely little idea if you're out on a walk is to look at the work of somebody like Andy Goldsworthy, who's an environmental artist, and you can just use whatever you find. So we were in the woods one time, and we were under a pine tree, and there were hundreds of cones just lying everywhere. So we cleared just a tiny patch of ground, and just started collecting them and laying them in circles and circles and circles. And then we found some ferns nearby, and we made a wee ring with some of the ferns, and just built it out into this lovely, lovely little ring.
That sounds beautiful.
Yeah. So there's a few ideas. I have hundreds more to share. I could talk about this sort of thing all night. I really feel passionate about getting children excited about being out in nature, but also just experimenting with art materials. And Charlotte Mason often said that, just taking a child to a woods or a pond or a park, they will find something to be fascinated by and will want to look at it and enjoy it. And so as parents, we can help support them in that.
I would second as well the Explore Nature of Children curriculum. It's absolutely fantastic because it does you have your nature study, you have your art, you have science, you can incorporate pictures, art study and poetry study. It's such a rich curriculum that you can reuse over and over again.
Yes.
I'll also be linking to the phonology wheel that Nicki has created in the notes for the podcast. So that you can check that out on our Etsy shop as well. Phonology wheels are so beautiful. I see them, people creating the most amazing phonology wheels, and I just like, oh, I want to be an artist.
It's a lovely way actually to look back on, if you do it for a second year, you'll see, oh, actually, nice way to track it.
Yes. The internet dropped out there, sorry. Okay. And that's you see that tracking of nature, you see the color. When you see a full phonology wheel, you really see how the colors of nature change throughout the year. They're just delightful.
And just to add with the Explore Nature with Children, there were some weeks where I would just leave on display whatever that current art image was. And I remember specifically there was one month where it was a red squirrel. And I just left it out with the art materials. I think it was some pens and pencils and maybe some, or maybe watercolors. And I just left the image and the watercolors and the pencils on a table. And my son came in and he just started doodling what he could see. He was just started drawing. And it leads to lovely conversations because there was another image from that pack, which was a male and a female pheasant. And I asked my son, why do they look different? And, which one's the male and which one's the female? And we ended up having a conversation about that the female is plainer in colour because she needs to be able to hide well to protect her babies. And it just was a lovely, a lovely wee discussion and helped him to learn more about the things he sees around him.
I also think that curriculum also works so well with families of multiple ages because you can keep doing it. You can do it with literally with a 2-year-old. And really simple, but you can be doing it with a 10-year-old and go far into much more detail about the life cycle of plants or photosynthesis or whatever you're doing. It's so broad, and you coming back year on year and going deeper every cycle. It is such a great resource, and it's UK based, so it fits with our nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I find as well that, we started it maybe about 3 years ago. So in the first year or two, we did a lot of what she had suggested, but we enjoy using the themes and the art. But then I sometimes dip into, like Twinkle or somewhere like that and type in the theme and find other things to complement it. And then, some books that complement that as well. We'll find other things that complement that theme. So we found it a really, really good resource, especially if you're starting out in home ed and you don't know where to begin. Because I found that when we were just beginning, it was something that gave it grounded our week. It gave us, something to work from each week, which was really, really nice.
And it ticks so many curriculum boxes.
Yes.
If that's something that you get stressed about, like, oh, we've not done such and such. That is a curriculum that definitely can be used over multiple subjects. You've mentioned lots of different types of material there. So one for me, I love to think, let's go and do an art activity, and I'll go and try and find an art activity to do. And I'll say, oh, this looks amazing. And then I'll say, oh, we don't have that, we don't have this. What kind of things would you say would be great art materials or equipment to have in your home as kind of like the basic essentials?
So one of the things that jumps to mind when I think of that is when I first started at the Montessori nursery, Maria Montessori, who started that method, she believed in giving children good quality art materials. We often think, oh, they're just little, they're going to damage things or work. But actually, she believed that giving them good quality materials from the beginning encouraged them to look after them. And I remember a few years ago, I was very lucky to find a very good quality tin of pencils in a charity shop that should have been, £60 or something. And we've kept them in the tin, we've kept them in colour order. And my son like treasures them, and he opens it and he always puts them back. And it's something because we've started that from the beginning. So I would encourage good quality colouring pencils, a nice sketchbook or paper. I mean, we also have copy paper sitting at the side if he just wants to plan or do something like that, as well. But it's nice to have a nice sketchbook to work in, and you can see things building up in it. I mentioned before about the tin of watercolors and that sort of brush pen. We find that that's really helpful because we use it at home or we take it out and about with us. Something that I use a lot with wee seedlings is something called paint sticks, and they're not very expensive, but they're quite chunky and they go on like paint, but they dry really quickly and they're very vibrant colours. And so we have found them really helpful because once they're dry, you can draw back on top of them with an oil pastel or a pen or a pencil or something. So yeah, I would say those paint sticks are great, especially for really young children. Oil pastels are amazing as well because again they're vibrant, and even kids who haven't got control yet, they can really make lovely big marks and things.
Go on nicely. They go
Yes,
on super nicely.
yeah, absolutely. You could put out some like poster paints. Again, I would try and get some nice quality ones and some nice brushes. You don't have to go top end, but I wouldn't go for the really cheap ones because you can really tell when you're putting them on the paper, and it gives the children a truer experience if they are using proper paintbrushes. And I find sometimes, like if we're like that example I gave about the squirrel, if I lay out, a few examples of colours and I leave an image, that's enough to get them started on creating, a drawing. Something else that's really fun is charcoal sticks, and giving them big pieces of paper and just letting them, take them out the front of your house and get them to draw your house, or get them to draw, a lovely big tree in the park. I also use with children grey board that you would get in the back of like packaging, and then a couple of bulldog clips on the top, and then they can put a big piece of paper and clip it on, and then they can draw on there or they can paint on there. We Another thing I'd recommend is a tablecloth or a table that you don't mind getting mucky if you're using art materials at home, being able to lay that out and just let them kind of work freely. And I would leave some materials that are accessible to them all the time so that if they're feeling inspired to just wanting to create, they can access those things, and talk to them about how to use them is a nice way to start.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nicki, so much. It's been really helpful and really practical, and hopefully will inspire families to get started. And check out the links to all Nicki's places, and because some of her stuff on Etsy is absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today, Nicki.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Emma from Arise, and I'm here to tell you about and to welcome you to our new podcast at Arise Home Education. This is going to be a place where home educators can be encouraged, where you can be informed of great resources, where we hope to give you practical ideas and tips and advice for every stage of your home ed journey. We're going to be having guests. We're going to have, in the next coming weeks, we'll be featuring our tutors at Arise Home Education. We'll also be having other guests who will come along and speak to you about areas that they are passionate about or where they have a particular expertise. In the next couple of weeks, look out for a podcast with where I interview Claire Rogerson. Many of you will be familiar with Claire if you live in the Central Belt. She's a well-known figure in the home ed community. She is absolutely lovely. She is a great encourager, a great networker. She loves bringing home educators together and creating that space for community. She's going to be talking about creative ways to home educate when you have young children. And that's she's just lovely. I think you'll all love Claire. We will also be discussing more spiritual aspects of home education. Coming up, I'm going to be doing a podcast on prayer as a home educator, and both the creative ways to facilitate prayer as a home ed mum, because we know that can be really difficult when you're surrounded by young children. And we're also going to be discussing some of the more political and topical points that are affecting home educators and Christians in the UK and in Scotland. So I hope this will be a blessing to you. If you really want to see anything featured in this podcast, please put that in the comments, and please subscribe. Thank you.